it going, everybody? Welcome to OP Entertainment. I'm Omar Darwish.
And I'm Pratik Cherian.
And this is our review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse Part 2, Miles' second movie.
There we go.
We're in a new studio. If you guys noticed, everything's different. I'm swiveling when I do this.
New studio, new digs, same podcast you
Same
love.
podcast, same
Right.
stuff. We're going to go spoiler-free because see this movie before we get any other takes. See this movie. This is... I walked out of it thinking this is definitely the best movie of the year. And it's between this and John Wick Chapter 4 for me just because they're both beautiful. And we're talking about this, though. This is the Empire Strikes Back of the Spider-Man universe. That's what I'm going to say. Go ahead.
All right, that's fair. So we watched it last night, and I think as I thought about it over the night, I realized... I'll just come out and say it. The movie was fine. I thought this movie was fine. I didn't think it was as good as the first one. But I think a big part of that is because of my love of Spider-Man and Spider-Man being my favorite character. So I think if you remove some of that fandom out of it, the movie's beautiful. The animation is top-notch, which is what you'd expect from something that wants to carry the Into the Spider-Verse name.
Yeah. When you hear it took him 3 years to do the animation, you're like, what? Then you see it on screen, you're like, oh. Okay,
you get why.
Yeah.
In a way, I think whether you like the first one or the second one from an animation standpoint is almost a matter of preference. I slightly prefer the first one, but again...
I prefer this one, so...
Yeah. Again, it's a matter of preference. There's a lot of interesting things they do. I really like the way that they animate each dimension slightly differently, which is...
It's like you're reading different comic book runs by different
artists.
It was
Incredible.
Yeah.
It does feel like that, and that's great. I really liked the way that this one focused on Gwen so much more. Gwen's really like more of a co-star in this than she was.
I was gonna say,
in the
would
first.
you say she's more the lead in this? Like, because
The movie opens with her and
like,
kind of closes with her as
it
well.
It opens with her, it closes with her, and it feels like it takes a while to get to Miles. Maybe it's because he's the star and we're building up to him. But but I'm not gonna lie, when Miles first comes on screen, I was just so happy. The most happy I've been since Tom Holland's when it says Queens in Civil War, and you're like, oh shit, we're gonna get Spider-Man. I'm like, that's how I felt. I was like, he is Spider-Man to me. Miles Morales has always been just like, a Spider-Man version, a variant of Spider-Man. Now I feel like he's Spider-Man to me, and this movie goes out of its way to show how much he is Spider-Man compared to other Spider-Man, right? Without getting into anything.
Yeah. I think I thought that Gwen was a great co-lead in this, if I can say that, but I thought that the movie was at its strongest when it focused on one of those two.
It's weird because I felt like, they're gonna give all the emotional stuff to Gwen, but no, it's
no,
they give almost all the characters all the main characters, they give them.
They did a really good job of in the middle in a movie that could very easily be bloated, and there's tons of Easter eggs and tons of things to see, but they never let that stuff really distract from the core story that they're telling.
Lord and Miller are geniuses. Like, did they direct this one or?
No, I think they just produced and wrote.
Either way, they're geniuses. They know exactly what people want, and they just know how to deliver. The humor is great, and it's. I think the first one may have been funnier, but this one, it's just the humor spaced out a lot more, and it always hits. It's not like it's worse. You were touching on the animation. The animation is. I honestly, I was saying this off camera. I don't really see myself watching any other animated movies for a long time. Every time I have an itch to watch an animation, I'm just gonna throw this on because it'll give me everything I want from an animation. Not just beautiful visuals, but would you say this one did a lot more character development for at least Miles and Gwen than the first one did, right? Like, the first one had the heavy lifting of introducing these characters to the mainstream audience, but this really fleshed out. I didn't know any of this about Gwen. Maybe it's because I didn't read the comics, but I didn't know any of this stuff with her back. But still, because I was like, man, this art style is amazing. You're like, well, it's pretty much like her comic art style. I was like, well, I'm definitely gonna read her comics if this is how.
I think it's more that the first one. There's a lot of character development that happens, but in the first movie, it's pretty much the standard hero's journey for Miles. Sure. So it didn't feel as fresh. I think with this one, you could argue that it's a fairly standard second movie in a trilogy arc. But I do think that they did a good job with it and giving us something new when it comes to Miles' character.
I'll agree that the first movie definitely gives him a full arc, but this almost makes you second guess if his arc was even full in the first one, and now we're still completing this part of his story. I don't want to like say anything or give anything away, but that's
Yeah.
kind of how I felt about it.
Sure.
Also, this one asks like deeper questions to the audience, and they really trust the audience to not.
I'm doing my best not to
I know
roll
you're
my
not gonna
eyes.
spoil-
I'm trying so hard.
If you didn't like Loki and the deep questions in Loki, you might not like might not like the deep questions in this as much either. But
Questions so deep that a baby can't drown in them.
they're deep, all right. It's deeper than any other Spider-Man movie. I can't think of any other one that's asked like these philosophical, like what really, Anyway, what'd you think of all the Spider-Men in this?
Can I get to my complaints?
Sure, just
All
do
right,
it.
all right, fine. I think my big complaint from this, and this is why I said in many
Without
ways
spoiling.
without
Yeah.
spoiling, speaking as a Spider-Man fan, I thought that in many ways, the movie, with the exception of Miles, kind of missed the thing that is at the core of every Spider-Man, and that is that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And I thought that in many ways, this movie kind of took that away from almost every Spider-Man that you see up there. And so I thought that in many ways, it kind of crapped all over the legacy of Spider-Man, and every Spider-Man that you see in this comes off looking worse with the exception of Miles.
Okay, so I don't like disagree with what you're saying. It just doesn't. I don't think it affects the movie or
I
every
think
Spider-Man.
I think I think the big thing is because of so much of that is wrapped up in the villains, and because the villains are so weak. I thought that really impacts the movie. So much of it is Miles' journey, but again, every hero needs an antagonist to go up against, and it didn't have that. And also, I think because the like middle 2/3 of this movie, or middle third of the movie, is focused so much on the villains and the multiverse and all of that stuff, and because it doesn't land, that middle part really drags.
Land.
I like the beginning. I like the end. That middle it was dragging.
Okay, I will admit that there are parts where I felt like the pacing was a bit off.
If I didn't have all of the shiny Spider-Man on screen and all of the like Easter eggs that are coming at you a mile a minute,
I have another thing about your disagreement with how the Spider-Men are in this, right? I think that it's more so, and I think it goes to what I was saying earlier about how like it's kind of like a philosophical discussion. These Spider-Men obviously haven't gone through what you've seen every single Spider-Man that you've ever read and watched go through,
except
right?
that these are those Spider-Man.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly,
I know who
exactly.
these people are. If they were all just like if they were all anonymous, it'd be different. And I think it's a little easier to swallow, but
The ones that are making those decisions, though, for the most part, are there's one in particular I know you're talking about.
it's more than one.
There's yeah, sure, but I guess I feel like that's kind of the movie showing how Miles is kind of elevated, and you might think that's like they're jobbing the rest of the characters to like.
I do,
but in a movie with a million Spider-Man in it, and Miles is the number one. I mean, it's kind of expected that he's gonna be a little bit of a standout, right? Like,
I think that there's a difference. You can make a character stand out without doing it at the expense of other characters.
they should have. I agree. They should have explained more why the other Spider-Man felt so okay with making the decisions they were making. Okay, I'll say that.
Fine.
But that doesn't take the movie from a 10 to like anything lower than a 10. This movie is incredible. Like, let's just score it. Are you ready to score it? Because I don't want to give away too much more about the movie.
This is a very hard movie to talk about specifically because there's so much to spoil, and I think that so much of, if you do enjoy it, I do think that it's the journey that you would end up enjoying.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take away. I don't want to talk about standout moments because I want you, if you're going to enjoy this movie, I want you to experience those things for yourself.
We gotta talk about those post-credit scenes. There weren't any. Which there was no post-credits.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it was weirdly refreshing. Like, hey,
it was nice to have a movie kind of just end for once.
Like end at the end. Not everything needs it. Yeah.
I was bummed at first when you're like, hey, I don't think there's any post-credits. I was like, are you sure? And then we looked into it. Like, yeah, I guess not. I was like, oh, well, okay, let's just go.
It worked out.
Although the credit animation is incredible. So
the credit animation is really good. I will say, I don't think this is a spoiler. It does end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It's part one of 2 parts.
Yeah, and so go into it expecting that. I would say the reaction from our theater at the ending was negative.
Pissed?
Yeah.
More like, it was more so like, no! Like, I want to see what's going on next.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean,
there was a lot of like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. But I felt like I just got a full meal with that movie. I don't know that I was very excited obviously to see what's going to happen next, but
and that's why I say like go into it with that expectation, because I think so much of that is everyone was expecting it to like end.
It's as much as I love Dune. It's not like how Dune Part 1 ends and it's like, oh, it's just over. This ends.
Dune
and
Part
it's,
1 ends with a, oh, thank God, it's over.
Anyway, we're gonna get a new host in here next week.
All right, I'm ready to score it if you are.
Yeah, 10. This movie was incredible. It might end up my favorite. It's between this and John Wick Chapter 4 for me. Beautiful. The character arcs are great, excluding maybe like one character arc that I didn't particularly love, and I know you hated. I can't wait to see what's coming next. We only have to wait a year, it looks like, as long as there's no more strikes or anything. But even if the actors go on strike, who cares, right? They got everything.
All right,
10 though, for sure. Go see this movie. Go take your kids. Go take your grandma. Go take your dog if they allow it. This movie's incredible.
Walking out of the theater, I was going to say 6, and having had a night to sleep on it, I'm going to bump it up and say 7.
Say it to his face. Say it to
Seven.
his face.
7. And honestly, again, it's the middle part of the movie that drags. It's the fact that the villains are weak. It's the fact that while the animation is great, I didn't think it was on the level of the first one. And I also thought there were moments where it felt like it's rare that I see animation where I'm like, oh, they're trying really hard to be different without succeeding. Like, a couple backgrounds were really weird. Couple things that they did. I don't know. When you're
talking about backgrounds, are you talking about the Gwen-verse backgrounds?
No, not
okay,
that.
because I love
No, not that. There were moments where, and I think you had said this about the first one, but I really felt it in this one, where there were moments where I was like, I feel like this is supposed to be in 3D.
Yeah, for sure, but
yeah.
it's way more in the first one, I thought. This movie is longer, so there's a lot of it, but at least they give you a break.
I thought, speaking of longer, I thought the pacing was a little off. There's a lot of little things, and that's ignoring the giant, character stuff that I didn't appreciate, but yeah, I'm going with a 7. It was good. It was good. If go see it.
You're still excited to see the next one, right?
Yeah. I'll still see the next one. Hopefully they read some Spider-Man comics between now and then. But
so if the next one is as good as the first, is this gonna be up there for you as far as trilogies?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, cool. So this didn't ruin the trilogy by any means.
Didn't ruin the trilogy for me. It's just there's always. Second one's not as good as the first, and that's pretty common.
Do you feel like they fundamentally just misunderstood the character, like how you do with Man of Steel?
Oh,
we're not going to get into it.
Right,
but I'm just saying, is that how you feel though, about it?
I don't want to justify that, but yeah, I felt like they fundamentally didn't understand the character.
Cool. So bring Henry Cavill back. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. I think we have The Flash. Speaking of,
pretty sure that's in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see you guys for a review coming up soon.
Yep. All right, see ya.
See ya.